So, good morning, Lynn. We are enjoying our conversations. I think these days for these kind of podcast style videos that we're doing. Lynn and I were just talking before we hit record about all that we do to kind of adjust and shift and prepare, and it's all just part of the process as we get used to recording a little bit more content to share with not only our users but with everyone out in the social realm as well. Today, we are talking about feedback, actually. We have been using that term a lot throughout our internal meetings, and we're ready to have a conversation about it that we can share with everyone else. Basically, why feedback matters and what feedback loops are, and how they're benefiting us when it comes to creating our products, but also how they work within our company outside of our products too. So, welcome, Lynn. Thanks for chatting with me today about feedback. Um, let's start, if you're comfortable, and just have a conversation about why does it matter? Why a lot of times companies are kind of cited for gathering feedback for their own benefit of just basically confirming what they already want to do. I know that that doesn't work that way here at Virtual PBX, but why does it matter to us? What do you, as a company, speak to us from a product standpoint on the importance and the value?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a product standpoint, product feedback in general is how we build the right feature set, the right product for our customer base. They're the core of essentially knowing our customer and how they use certain features. And then as we're gathering, whether it's the customer feedback or internal, using that information to transform what we're currently building or iterating on that to ensure that it's optimized for the customer. So, in general, product feedback as a whole is something that I value highly. I think it's really the thing that defines what we're building and it ensures that we're on the right path. So, whether we're collecting feedback as we're building or just taking in feedback from customers that have been with us for a long time to build new potential features or product feature enhancements. It's really the core of it. So when it comes down to it, feedback in any way is much appreciated within our company, whether it's coming from a lead that we've talked to in sales or internal team members that have had a onboarding experience with customer and they see there's a confusion look on the customer or they see like, oh, there's a way to enhance our feature. We ingest that in and we try to uh, make sure that we can build a feature or re-educate customer in a way that it makes sense so that there's more of correlations with what they're providing to us and what we're giving to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree completely. And thank you for that. I think it's always just nice to kind of clarify where we're coming from as a company when it comes to that. You mentioned a couple of words that I wanted to highlight on. You had mentioned building that feedback and building into it. And then you'd also mentioned collecting it. And I wanted to take a moment to just kind of add that I think when it comes down to our company, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of there are companies that are that are collecting feedback, and then there are the companies that are building feedback into the design of the company and into the design of the product, and also into the design. We'll talk a little bit later about how feedback is incorporated as an easy part of obtaining that within our product. So it's really feedback is being built into our systems, into our processes. It's not something that we collect and kind of keep over here to go through and run through like a filing system. It's actually part of the workflow. Is that capturing us? I feel like that's us in a nutshell, but is that capturing us correctly, um, as far as how we incorporate it into what we do?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think of it too, feedback is more of a journey. It's not one set of data that you look at and you just kind of parse out. We look at feedback as, at one point in time, this is how we're collecting it, whether it's a surveys or talking to customer or pulling data in conversations that were silos and then interpreting those informations as part of our feedback loop and then iterating from there. But part of our journey for collecting that feedback and in a way automating it to ensure that we're getting the correct information from the customer or team or whoever it is, those feedback can be taken into action more in real time rather than a reactive approach. Because oftentimes, feedback can be a longer term process. A lot of like, not to expand into other scope, but a lot of large companies
Yeah,
have
go for it.
things like voice of the customer program, or they have NPS programs that takes a long time to collect those informations. But it takes even longer time to take actions on those feedback. And we wanted to reduce those time to ensure that when we're collecting the feedback, there's some action behind it, whether it's immediately or within that immediate time frame. So we do think a little bit differently. We collect feedback in several different ways and pull the information together and take those actions, I would say, relatively in a quick time frame, especially from a product standpoint. I often meet with customer, and within that day of meeting with them and getting that feedback, if there's something there that we can adjust and make that quick win for them, we can take those action and do it within that week. So the feedback that we do take in, and then the process to follow through and commit to those action can happen within that week time frame. So customers really actually see the change and the recommendations that they're providing to us immediately. We want to ensure that that's the case, whether it's coming from customers or intern teams as well, where it used to be we're collecting feedback through surveys and it takes us a while to adjust and then figure out a plan of how we could have, you know, adjust that feedback and then maybe adjust features, etc., things like that. But now we're iterating in real time to ensure that we're meeting our customer where they're at and ensuring that they're getting what they need from our products.
That's definitely an impressive capability of ours that I think we're all pretty proud of is just being able to hear and quickly implement. And product does a fantastic job of that here. You guys and your team, Lynn, is remarkably responsive when we are processing customer responses, basically feedback in all elements. Okay, I'm going to dive in a little here, a little deeper. So, fixing feedback like a bug in the system, something easy that we can change, no problem. How do we balance the speed of the feedback and the implementation with the reasonable expectation of the response time and also keep ourselves from making hasty reactionary changes for one customer? What's the balance between, hey, I've gotten this one piece of feedback versus maybe that's just something that we need to work through with them? I know I'm asking all the
For
tough
sure.
things today.
Well, overall, it is quite of a balance, and it's really distills down to understanding the different aspects of what that feedback is. Is this, and there's several questions that we essentially ask ourselves when we're getting a feedback, whether it's a bug or a product improvements or maybe a new features. We look at it from a perspective because we do support thousands of customers, and while minor things that we can quickly fix or adjust that are impacting a significant large number of customers, those are easy to fix because we can sort that out and we know that it's impacting thousands, so we want to get that sorted out immediately. But for the little things, nuances that maybe just specific to one individual customers, we still try to fix those immediately, but it's not on a larger scale to where it might impact other customers. So it's more silos, which is kind of nice depending on the product that we're talking about. Like for example, with our VirtualText product, we leverage a lot of AI as well as isolating those instances for customers, so that if there is a feedback or a bug we can immediately fix it because it's independence from other customer. It does not impact other customers if we're fixing an issue that's related to one customer, which is kind of nice, the balance between how we build the product previously and how we build product now. So it's not necessarily an impact on all customers if we need to fix or adjust something for one individual customer.
Excellent. I don't even know if I was completely aware that we have that fine-tuning capability. That's pretty cool. So, what we I guess what I see as a benefit there, and I'm now just completely speaking off the cuff here, but we can make an adjustment for one customer because of their need, and that essentially gives us more feedback, right? If that works well for one, there may be opportunities to implement changes system wide, but it's almost like having that customer walk through that experience based on the change that they wanted to see, and watching it and observing it before we make a decision to roll any component of that out to others as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the beauty of the isolations of product instance is you're not if you're deploying a fix, you're not dependent on impact on all customer. You can focus more localized on the customers that are impacted. And that's part of the reason why we chose to build VirtualText the way we did. It's through feedback because we've interacted with other products or other vendors where we reported a bug and they were hesitant to deploy a fix because they know they're going to impact thousands or hundreds of thousands of customers, but the issue might lies with maybe 100. So we wanted to ensure in our building process that we had that isolation in place.
That's fantastic. And I think that goes back to kind of that idea of not in essence, I know that we technically collect feedback. I know that that's a technical term, but what we've really done, especially with virtual text, is built in layers of feedback opportunity. I mean, that's a secondary layer. That's outside of surveys. That's outside of checking in on customers as a whole. That's being able to take an element of a single component of feedback that we've received and implement it on a small scale before determining what other scale we'd like to use, which is extremely fine tuned. And I think it's a great way to utilize feedback for all of our products. I want to um, jump back a second. I would talk about some hard things. We also know that feedback in the past has just gotten disjointed. It breaks somewhere, something happens. And kind of like you said, with some of the past vendors and providers that we've worked with, you do submit feedback, nothing happens, and things do start to break down. It takes time, but I think, and I know that we've seen that with other products. But what are the things that we start to see when we don't have that feedback layer, those layers in place to inform us when things need to adjust and shift? I guess I want to talk about this more from the perspective of us as a business speaking to our customers as a business. What do other people, what can we tell them to look out for? What did we start to see when we started recognizing, hey, something is not working here? Like we are sharing feedback, nothing is coming back. We aren't able to implement feedback like we'd like to. Talk about some of those struggles that led us, I guess, to this point of layered and built in, intentionally designed feedback.
Yeah, I mean, some of the struggle that we experience, essentially most businesses do. You know, feedback is always collected throughout the life cycle of a customer. There might not be action that's taken on those, but it's noticeable difference. So things that we typically notice, and most business will probably notice this as well, too, are customer frustrations for unresolved issues or potential churn factors. And in those two like key points, we always identify an issue that wasn't typically addressed, and businesses will know that from a financial perspective as well, because customer will churn if their issues aren't resolved over time. There's only a certain level of patience that customers typically have, and any business should. Uh, so we want to make sure when we iterate on our feedback loop, we've had a way to not just capture the feedback from one perspective, but all across the board. Like, for example, in our VirtualText product, we have several ways of looking at feedback, not just from an intern, because I personally meet with our customers to gather their feedback to see how they're using our product and to see how we can improve their experience as a whole with the product. And then separately, because we use the product internally, we have this conversation with customers. We have sentiment analysis and observations where we're able to see, as the conversation progressed, the tone and the level of sentiment that the customer is experiencing. Are they frustrated with issues that were not being addressed in the conversation? Are they happy? What their flow currently? We're able to see that, and it surfaced in the conversation directly, shared across teams so that there's full visibility. And then once the conversation closed the loop and, prospectively we've resolved their issues, observation kicks in where we can see the full journey of the customer conversation with us, how we handle those incidents, what could have been handled better. And then we use that to provide internal feedback to ensure that our team is fully equipped for the next instance. Uh, or if we need to reach back out proactively to make sure that the customer issue is fully resolved, depending on the sentiment that they're providing with us from there. So those are like the two things that we really have in place now to ensure that we're meeting the customer where they are. And then separate from that, we're adding in another layers of feedback where customer can rate us. Uh, how are we handling these conversations? How are we addressing those issues? So those are surfaced or will be surfaced directly into the product. So we're not just collecting, using AI to leverage the tone, using it to improve our performance and how we engage with our customers, but we also want the customer to share with us, are we giving you everything that you need from our product standpoint?
It is a multifaceted web. I think when we talked about wanting to approach this subject and you start looking at the different ways that we're addressing and collecting feedback and also providing that opportunity to our customers for their customers, when they're actually using the product, it is a it is a web. It is just truly interwoven in so much that it's kind of hard to pull out this little filament and fragment of feedback so that we can talk about it and kind of isolate it. So I think in that, before we start diving really deep into our product, which we will, something came up when I was kind of doing some research, talking about how many companies overestimate how well they actually take in feedback, listen to it, and respond to it. And so again, it goes back to listening versus collecting and justifying what they already have in place and whether or not we're truly willing to be open to the idea of basically being wrong, right? I mean, being wrong or needing to move in a different direction. So I just want to candidly ask, I know we're collecting a lot more feedback than we did with our previous product. How well do you think that we're estimating our ability to listen and return that information now versus then? And then maybe speak on it generally, like what you see with our customers, if you think that they are overestimating what they're seeing and what they're doing with their feedback as well.
Again, feedback is, of course, a journey. So uh, what works today may not work in the future, just like what previously worked doesn't necessarily work now. So we're very open to the possibility of adjusting how we collect that information and how we listen to it and adjust from there. Personally, what I do with our customer, as well as our team, I have a very much an open door policy, and we use tools where they can essentially drop in and have conversation with us, share feedback. And we have customers that have done that where they're essentially dropping in my office and we have conversation about, this feature is working really well for me, or hey, I would love if this was, a certain way. And they can drop in at a minute notice. So I tend to have a pretty open policy in that sense. And there's been a lot of moments in this, last year or two while we're building virtual text where we've had that feedback from customer, and within that same day we were able to turn around and adjust based off of their feedback. So I would say, in the past things might have been a little, in the gray area, with the adjustments of different process and collections and iterating on the feedback. But in this last year, as we've adjusted to the change and improved how we've intake in feedback and then build from there, essentially, we've gotten a lot better and we've gotten closer to where our customers are and having those conversations in real time. Um, like, for example, in the last month, we had a customer and several customers. I was talking to them overall on our new product, giving them a demo. And during the demo, there was this highlight moments where I call it the aha moment. They essentially love this feature. And how we had built it originally wasn't intended the way it is today in the product. We needed to adjust a couple of details within the feature to ensure that it makes sense to the customer without needing further explanation. And that's really ideal for me as a product manager, where we look at the features, how we built it, and then we present it to the customer. If it makes sense to them and it clicks within that first couple moments without having to further explain it, that's when we know we have something gold. So within that feature, we're demoing the product to the customer, and there was just something that just wasn't quite clicking of how we were addressing the feature of it or the functionality of it. We went back later that day, adjust the feature based off of what the customer was saying. And then within that week, we were to ship the adjustments in the feature, demo to the customer again, and it made so much more sense to them. So little things like that really helps for us internally to validate what we're doing, that it makes sense to the customer and that we are adjusting the feedback that they're providing to us and then giving them the validation, as well as internal validation where we know we're building the value and presenting those values to our customers.
Absolutely. And I think we basically what I was kind of trying to get at there is, you know, we some of the tools that we've used in the past, some of the vendors that we've worked with in the past, they get that feedback. It sits somewhere collected. Um, maybe there's an opportunity that they go through and review it, but it's weeks later that they're going through and reviewing it. It's not in real time at all. It's not even close to real time. And a lot of times it just kind of falls flat, right? What's the point of collecting feedback if you aren't going to do anything with it? And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at is what we are working really hard to do is create feedback loops that are so built into the tools that it's natural to go back, address them, and fix them in real time. It's not something that's so disconnected that by the time you take a look at it, it falls flat. And I think that's every product development goal is to do something like that. But I think that they're doing something like that outwardly, again, to kind of validate what they've built. And I think the real difference with us and the reason that we're talking about it to really share that insight with customers is we're doing it internally. We are really and truly doing it in real time. It is woven in, so you can't really set it to the side and keep moving. I mean, I suppose that you could. Anybody can do something like that. But again, drop-in hours are a great example. I see a number of times that Lynn is suddenly in meetings, and almost always that is a customer that has come in and said, they either want to discuss, they want to add a feature, they want to know about a feature, and you're really great with that, Lynn. So I'm sure that they all appreciate it. We watch for her office to be locked and unavailable random points throughout the day.
Well,
Okay.
and
Oh, go ahead.
and to
Yeah.
add and to add to that, like oftentimes, what a lot of companies will do is they'll say, "Let's create a ticket," or "Have you submitted a ticket?" And we didn't want to get down that path where it get lost in the land of tickets, right? These are conversations that we're having with customers or teams, and the conversation turn into something valuable. Those feedbacks loop, right, is part of that feedback loop where the conversation turns into, okay, this is something we can build. This is something that we can enhance. And the team, as well as the customers, see the recognition in that we do take that feedback in real time and build and make something from it, rather than just asking them like, hey, just submit a ticket and we'll get back to you. We didn't want that broken experience for our customers.
It's broken and it's impersonal. And I know that we're going to talk a little bit too about how this scales and how this moves with you, because I think it seems innate to believe that, oh, at some point I have to move to ticketing to handle all of this. But I think that we found a way internally that we don't actually have to do that nearly as much as you think, and that does allow us to keep an actual real pulse on the feedback. But I'm going to take us back for a bit, because I think we're jumping ahead to what it does now, but I'd like to talk about how we got there. Some of the problems that we were having, some of the internal loops that were breaking down, some of the things that we were seeing that we were struggling with that led us. I mean, this is a product of our own ideation. It's coming from a place of our own kind of struggle. And I think feedback was a large part of that, which is the biggest reason for kind of talking through this a little bit more. Um, Things weren't working. Can we talk a little bit about what things weren't working and what we were struggling with and what we knew, what basically led us to the point where, okay, we're going to have to address and fix this.
Yeah. I mean, all companies experience that kind of a struggle before they, adjust and change. It's part of growing pains, right? As any business experience. And we've had a lot of we've been around for a long time. So there's
Yeah.
bound to be a bunch of different scenarios where things weren't working and we had to adjust and grow and learn from there. For example, a couple years ago, we were having some struggles with explaining to customers how, telecom billing works. There's a lot of nuance that associate to it, you know, and not everybody fully understands. I'm sure you've all seen your cell phone bill. There's a lot of things that are tacked on, and you just have no
Yeah, there's like
context of what
fees
it
out the
is, right?
wazoo. Yeah.
Exactly. And what most people don't understand is that it ties to your county, your states, your city. Like there's all these subset of places that collect certain set of fees, but there was no correlations to that from a customer standpoint. Um, so we were getting a lot of inquiry about questions related to this and that, and they just didn't understand those details. And it wasn't necessarily a product, concern, but it was a friction point for our customers. So in order to really address that, because after a while it was just we were getting flooded with questions, and it wasn't that we didn't explain those details. It just simply it wasn't interpreted in a way that it makes sense to the customer. So we simplified our billing significantly. We reduced the numbers of those fees, details collected, and we could just provide one set of fee that would encompass all those. And that helped address the concerns and questions that were coming from customers that just didn't understand what is this? I'm not even in this county or state or so we were able to adjust that into one simplified fee, and that helped reduce the friction in our billing team. And that's just like one minor thing, but it was a significant improvement for customers. And over time, we've improved our billing in other ways to make sure that customer understand what the value they're getting and what we're billing them on a monthly basis or annual.
I mean, and billing, everything always comes down to billing, right? I think that a lot of times it's not that it's a struggle, it's just working toward clarity is something that we're always striving for. And it's a balance between clarity and ease. And I think that that's always our goal, to make it as simple as possible, but also as straightforward and as transparent as possible. That's always what you're working toward in that push and pull. You talk a little bit about friction. We talk. That's a great example of kind of one of our breakdowns and how we made the change. How about internally? Um, Talk to me a little bit. Like, what have you seen over the years? And this could be from customers or internally from us. But our new product, it doesn't just return feedback externally with from a customer. It also gives you some insight into your team itself, and it's going to enhance basically team understanding, collaboration, and communication. So let's talk a little bit about how things get hard for internal teams to be able to speak up, so that we can get that internal feedback, and what we do internally when there's something going on. We test all of our own products. Our teams get the opportunity to use them first. How are we getting and retrieving and acting on our own internal feedback? And what might some signals be for our customers or small businesses out there to watch for that could often be missed when things aren't just kind of jiving 100% with internal teams, right? When there's friction in there. We all picture those super smooth, fluid working teams, but we're also always working on those friction points. There's always something that we're trying to smooth out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I see friction as a point of improvement, and oftentimes it's not necessarily that feedback wasn't taken or it wasn't listened to and addressed from there. It's just the understanding of maybe something that's more high level, something that's more in the nitty gritty details, and oftentimes when team members provide feedback, we do take those details and we do adjust from there. But just like it would be for a customer. We built the product. We know how to use it in the way that we want the customer to use it, but customers may use it differently. Same thing with teams. So it's getting to their level, and I mean, from a perspective like trying to get them to understand the journey of it and the kind of the high level overall strategically of what it looks like from that perspective. Because oftentimes, as a team member, some of the teams that I manage, their focus is in that instance. They want to resolve the issues here and they're addressing or giving feedback to address that specific issue. But that issue might be stemmed from something completely different that's not within their preview. So it's part of my prerogative is to give them some exposure to that and provide some context so there's more understanding across the board. So while we may not be able to address this specific issues, but we are addressing the issue as a whole, so it prevent further escalation.
Not only are you preventing further escalation, you're getting to the root of the problem. It's not just surface level. And I think I mean, I like us a lot, so I'm a little partial, but I think that we're pretty good at that, like figuring out what lies underneath that surface issue to actually see how we can solve it. And that's always a tricky thing. A lot of times, we work with customers on communication, right? So the things that they're seeing on the surface are calls they can't answer, missed calls. We can go on all day long about various call situations, not missing calls and not knowing where they came from, and voicemails that nobody wants to leave, and a lot of different things like that. And I think that this new product, it works the same way. Basically, as the world evolves and everyone's communication strategies evolve, we're just seeing more people using messaging and texting, which is why we have the product that we do. But it's not just about the text that you're missing. It's not just about the web chat message that didn't get answered correctly and you lost that customer. It's those are kind of the surface initial layers. Underneath that, we usually find other elements. We find areas where we can streamline organization underneath to keep things from happening to begin with. We find that a customer was looking for someone in several different areas and they were getting inconsistent messaging. That's something we can talk about later with our playbooks and trying to like streamline messaging. But a lot of times there's an underlying element that we're always trying to get at. And I think Lynn, what I hear you saying and what I guess I would share with other businesses who are looking to improve feedback loops, get down deep to the root of that issue, not just the thing that solves the problem in the moment, because there's usually something else underneath there that doesn't just solve then that problem. It actually solves that problem and the next dozen or the next 2 dozen, because you've actually gotten to the root of the problem. That makes accurate sense for some of our stuff here.
Yeah, and I would even sum it up as finding the why or explaining the why. Oftentimes, teams or individual they work in bubbles. And that's not to say they don't understand the scope of, high level and business strategy, but they do work in those sense of a bubble. And that's whatever the bubble reach is what their kind of scope of preview is. So being able to explain to them the why of why we might pursue certain aspects of a business, why we might build a certain feature a certain way or adjust things not directly related to what they're doing, but giving that exposure to them help explain like that journey that we're going on so they don't feel left behind. And I think that's ultimately what it is it comes down to communication and ensuring that you're meeting, whether it's your team or your customer, where they're at, giving them that understanding and being able to express, you know, the at least the interpretation, right? Whatever friction point may be, there might be other things that will address the whole issue rather than just that symptom. So
Yeah.
being able to address it overall.
Symptoms. That's a great way to kind of it is a great way to categorize it as symptoms and trying to figure out what the root of the problem is. And again, our feedback does help inform that when we don't see it internally, which does, again, you mentioned that we use a product a certain way, other customers use products different ways. So it really gives us a 360-degree perspective. Every time we get a customer in a different industry, we get an opportunity to see the products in action in that industry, and it gives us greater insight, and we can then better the product. So looking at uh, looking at how businesses use texting and call flows and web chats and collect all the feedback, it kind of what I think we're evolving to, and we can talk through this. Feedback used to look like, and it's not that we don't do it, surveys. Hey, how did you feel about this? How did you feel about this? But it actually seems like now we're collecting enough data, we're recording, we're watching, we're observing that feedback is not something that we have to ask for as often anymore. It's not something that we have to intentionally go out and get. It's something that we've designed in to our workflow and our products so that it naturally is fed back to us. Would you agree with that? I think that's also like a
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
strong element of talking with small businesses who, as they grow, if you can build the layers of feedback in, then you're not having to make this outward effort to retrieve it as often. It's still a great element. There are multiple facets to collecting and to listening to feedback, but building it in allows us to see a lot as well. And that means that our customers in some respects don't even know that they're sharing with us because we're able to see what's working and what's not. Can you talk a little bit more about what we can see just from the interactions, just from even just internally our own interactions without even asking our team what's going on?
Yeah, and I think we've transitioned from reactive feedback to more forward, like proactive feedback, where we can observe what's going on and adjust and fix the issue before the customer or the team reports the issue. And we've gotten pretty good at doing a majority of those. Obviously, there's going to still be issues where we're not everywhere. We can't address everything, right?
Not
So there,
omnipotent. Not yet. We're working on that. Next out. Wait, we're one day late for,
exactly.
next out. Omnipotence.
But essentially, like we're still collecting that feedback that while it's still in real time, it might not be addressed in real time from customers. And but what we want to do is just keep that check in place where we observe what's happening, and we want to see how the customers use it. Like the best example I can find for you is um, in our onboarding experience, where a customer comes in and we talk to them in real time. How's your business? How do you structure this? We get the information that we need about the business, and they give us, this is how we want our, you know, business phone service to be, or how we want our texting to be, how it is, and we listen and ingesting in all the information that they're providing to us, and we know how our products work, and we see, okay, if they leverage the features in this way or if we build it in that aspects, it's actually more optimized than how they're presenting. So in that sense, they're giving us that feedback of what they want, and we're taking that in and sharing it right back to them while educating them on, or recommending them on the best solution or best structure of how they could scale their business using our services. So in that sense, where it's mirroring proactive feedback, but it's not quite right. It's more educational, where we know this could prevent an issue long run if we help guide the customer in this aspects while making sure that it is optimized for their business. If that makes sense.
I think so. Well, and yes, I think that does make sense. Basically, looking at ways that tools can, like, we're always doing our best, I think, to educate customers on everything. So I don't think it's just, I know that we're referencing our product, but really we're talking with customers a lot about just how to communicate better. And a lot of times that leads to streamlining things that, yeah, it is an educational process, but that's still a way of kind of gaining and inviting feedback naturally, and we're not forcing it. It's really just part of a conversation on, hey, this could be a way to make a shift that makes a dramatic improvement.
Yeah,
um,
and obviously we want to give them what they need in terms of our products, and if they want to structure a certain way, absolutely we'll do that. But we also want to make sure that it's the best value by presenting the best use case or best configuration for their business too, as product
Definitely, and
experts.
exactly, I think right there as product experts, because I think what we've just gotten really good at is understanding communication, both channels and just the ways that people communicate. So we tend to see those things as an outside perspective, as an expert perspective, that they're not necessarily seeing. When your business grows, you're just answering the phone and texting back, right? And it's not even about growth, it's just operating a business. Things you're just operating. So it's always nice to have conversations, I think. And I think we would feel this way about any other expertise if we were talking to them, but having conversations with someone with that degree of expertise who can maybe quickly go, oh, but this. And it's just that small thing that makes a lot of things click. Going back to that kind of aha moment, we have those in a lot of different ways. And a lot of times we can find just a few little things and tweaks and adjustments that make a lot more click for them and improve their communication. Um, okay, talked a lot about that. I want to talk a little bit more about feedback through our product. Basically, we've found a lot of ways to capture and execute feedback. You talked a little bit about them with Observer, and with sentiment analysis. Those are things that are kind of innately built in to how the product functions and operates. Um, can we talk a little bit more about those built-in ways to learn, and to again, it's all about collecting natural and not forced feedback.
Yeah, I mean, those features that you highlight, they're essentially in running in the background, where it's observing the conversations and then surfacing maybe the sentiment of the customer, whether they're frustrated, so that our team can pivot from there. And we layer in an AI assistant to help engage the customer as well and support our team in a lot of ways. It uses the resource and information that we have about our products and present those details to customers in the conversations as well. If it's sensing, some discontentment, or maybe the answer that was provided wasn't quite as concise. So overall, like we've layered a lot of different details to give us signals of where our customers at in the communication process, and as the conversation progress, we have a lot more details, so our team can say, okay, it looks like I've addressed the issue, but the customers might still be a little frustrated. Let me make sure that I give them a little more extra care to ensure that whatever their frustration point is fully addressed, not just making the assumption that okay, it is addressed. So we do, the separate from what's inherent in the product, our team knows that how to handle those process to make sure that our customer is happy with the results they're getting.
Yeah, you mentioned AI, and let's talk about that for a minute, because I think that is a pretty integral part of how we're getting and receiving feedback and kind of keeping that loop going. We've woven AI into this product in a way that it can kind of keep a pulse and a tab um, on sentiment and on basically customer satisfaction. That's not to say that we don't have our team always in there, but it's just kind of like an extra set of eyes to make sure that we're not missing anything. Can we talk a little bit about how we've used AI to help with not only feedback on the tool, but we've built in those feedback loops into the tool itself?
Yeah, I mean, our latest product, VirtualText, has AI agents built in. So essentially, one of the feedback that we're getting is maybe a slight delay in response, and we want to make sure that customers are getting a response in almost in real time or in real time from when they start chatting with us. So we built an AI agent in there that can handle those conversations and then collect the information that they need from the customer, what their pain points are, and then our team comes in and already have those informations and be able to take action to address those concerns. That's one layer. Is that the AI agents leverages playbooks, which essentially is informations and processes about our business, about how our team operates, the products that we offer, and it uses those informations from the playbook to be able to address and answer the customer's questions. Beyond those scope, it's handed off to our internal teams to ensure that anything that's beyond, what the AI systems are capable of doing, our team will address. So maybe there's some configurational change that needs to happen on the customer end, or some more additional education. That's where our team's really great at coming in and highlighting that and making sure that the customers are getting what they need from there. Then separate from that, once the conversations has been addressed, I mentioned observations. Observation is really built in as a twofold. It helps to look at the conversations that's been fully addressed for the customer and provide feedback to our team to see what could have been improved for the next conversation, or in general, was there a tone adjustment that we managed to do, since communication is such a verse things across the board for everyone. How you might communicate to one person can completely differ to another, so it helps kind of address that. Tone would be one aspect, another would be maybe someone's more technical, we can dive deep into those technical details and nuances, versus someone that just need to know the very basics, and we want to make sure that we tailor the tone and the communication style to that person. And then separate from that, we have the AI assistants, which essentially sits on the side panel of a conversations. That's where our team can leverage. If the conversation's been ongoing for a while, we have a element that is shared inbox. So everything that a customer is talking to us about in the conversations, it retains the information, and our team can ask the AI assistant for information to summarize the issues or ongoing issues, so that they can quickly uh, catch up on what's going on with the customer and be able to address those issues from there. So there's like a lot of sprinkled in layers of AI, sprinkled in layers of support for our team to make sure that we're addressing the issues for customer in a more real time manner.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's hard to talk about because there are so many elements that are just fractionally woven in to make it all work. That it's kind of hard to pull those out without talking about, here's what our team is doing in the process. I think one of the things that basically that AI is allowing our team to be at their best, whatever capacity that is. I think that's the idea of what we're working toward with our customers as well. So, something else that I like is that it does catch when things are misspoken. It actually makes sure that our team is really accurate. It not only helps with tone, but accuracy as well, and then keeps us kind of on brand, which is really important, especially for smaller teams, to really make sure that we're staying true to ourselves. And it creates a better customer experience. What the customer sees is honestly usually less hold times. Not that we have a ton of those anyway, but they're definitely not, hold music gets frustrating, and we're reducing that friction point right up front from the beginning because we can have somebody, an AI agent jump in to help just basic questions. And it's not basic formulaic questions. That's the difference between automating an agent to just respond on certain answers versus an AI agent who is knowledgeable throughout everything and can kind of speak a little bit more fluidly with you. So they're not getting that friction point there either. And then they're getting, when they get to one of our team members in that situation where an AI agent has answered and they're getting to our team member, that team member is able to really just jump in and go. So less time, less friction, and really an overall more informed and accurate customer experience, which we're getting a lot of great feedback from. I think both from our internal team and what we hear as a company, but also as our customers are using the product because oftentimes if you're shorthanded or maybe somebody calls in sick or you've got a spike in volume for some reason, whatever that might be, hold times and not getting responses are easily the most frustrating uh, point of contention for customer experience and absolutely the breakdown point. So anything we can do to reduce those makes an incredible impact, right? I think I'm just checking in with you, but I think that's always our goal is just uh, to create that more frictionless customer experience. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that's the goal of most businesses is to reduce the friction experience for their customers.
well, I mean, we all operate businesses that do certain things. We're a communication business and we operate communication tools, but there's always going to be that customer experience angle to it, that it doesn't matter if you have the best tool on the face of the earth. If the
Mm.
experience with the customer drops off, it really doesn't matter. I mean, frankly, just to be quite honest, 10-minute hold times to get an answer, even if it's a customer error, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your product is flawless, you will still struggle because that customer experience is not great. So it's always an element that we're working on, and a natural element for every business, but a natural element for our company as well. Um, just had to get that in there. Like the most perfect product in the world will absolutely tank with a poor support team beside it. So that's
Well,
always what
and
we're.
that's why feedback is so important because you could perceive that the product you built is the perfect product in the world, but until you get it in the hands of users and customers that are providing you feedback, you don't know that inherently. And we love our product and we love what we build, but we essentially built it because of the feedback that our customers and our teams are providing. Right? So we're not just doing it because we love it. We love it because the feedback that the customers are shaping the product that we built. So it's a full circle.
Well, and it's more than that because at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about how you get feedback to validate yourself, or you get feedback to actually impact the product. And I think that right there just pull us full circle to say this is exactly what we're doing. Our feedback is building our products, and if we're talking to other small businesses about how they structure their feedback, the goal is to help that feedback shape, form, build, enhance, improve your product. And if all you're going out there thinking is that your product is perfect the way it is, we can probably show you a lot of customer experience examples where that's not happening as much as you think, right? I mean, it's just the customers are part of this team, whether they realize it or not. They're helping to build and shape what we do. Uh, and actually what we do, not just how we build the product, but also how we handle customer experience. Because the whole reason that we got here and the way that we came to this point is because of our customers. The way that we determined, hey, nobody likes to sit on hold that long, or people want answers more quickly, or it's frustrating to get to feel like you're getting an automated or scripted response. That's what led us here. We've always been a very human oriented company, and recognizing that um, we have some things outside of our own limitations, which is pulling yes, humans can create a script. Yes, you can get a scripted response. No, that's not helpful at all. However,
Yeah.
we can build a tool, an AI informed tool that has all of the details of our product and our business in it so that we can give you an informed response while we work to get one of our team members there. Bam, that was a solid win for us in from a customer experience angle. And that win is what allowed us to say, I think I'm talking in your terms now. Just correct me if I'm wrong. I think that this is something that other businesses would really benefit from is just that same ability to be a little bit more human in with some assistance on the back end for feedback. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
think
a
we're.
human. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no,
It's
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I would say it's a very humbling experience building products, but also as a business, right? You ingest in informations, you take in feedback and adjust from there because what you think might work today, it may not if you don't take the feedback of your customers and see how they're using it and adjust from that experience because they're the core of what makes a business work, right? Without customers, there would be no business. And I think that's really like the gem of the feedback loop is remembering and thinking from that perspective. Without those customer experience and their use of the product and the company wouldn't exist.
Absolutely. So, if a couple things that act as barriers in that, we talked about the fact that if you go in thinking that everything's perfect and you're only looking for feedback to kind of verify and validate your own ideas, that's probably not going to work for you. Feedback needs to be something that is built, designed, and constructed within the processes and the workflows that you're doing and seeking. And then, secondly, it is that built-in aspect. If you have to go out as a business and constantly work to retrieve feedback, not only are you getting a slice of time, is that customer happy right now versus 10 minutes ago versus 2 weeks ago versus you're getting just a slice of time in some instances with feedback that you have to go seek out versus feedback that's built in. Again, both elements are important, but it's important to also understand your limitations, which is the time and effort it takes to go and seek feedback, and then the time and effort it takes to collect it, because that's literally what you're doing, and then the time and effort that it takes to implement it. And all of that probably added up to weeks, months of time that then you have to say, okay, now we're ready to execute your feedback. And at that point in time, unfortunately, in a lot of cases these days, you've already lost that customer. So feedback, while we all think of it as surveys or, somebody reaching out to you to ask questions, it's actually really important that it's built into everything you do. And that's why it's a tough topic for us because of how woven it is into everything for us to kind of pull apart and identify and name. But that's exactly what makes it so good. It's just, it really is built into every fragment and fiber so that we aren't having to go out and seek it from you. We do that as well. But I just thought I would share businesses as they grow, if they can just build that in to be automatic. And I don't mean automated, I just mean automatic, an automatic part of their business that they don't have to seek. Not only do they lessen their workload, but they also get a better product, one that continues to evolve and be its best. Um,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of, if there's anything else. Basically, what I want to do is if there's any other if there's any other information and education that we can share with our customers, our customers, prospective customers, small businesses, um, on how they can hear their customers, how they can get feedback. Where's a good place to start? Maybe what's a good thing to start thinking about? Um, I'd love to give that to them if you have any thoughts and ideas on ways that people can kind of get started in weaving this idea in.
I think you highlight a lot of that, but to sum it up, essentially build your feedback loop into the tools that you use, right? So that it's more real time. In today's world, oftentimes things are instantaneous. People are used to that instant gratifications. So if you're delaying that process and delaying how you collect those informations to be able to adjust your business so that it's optimized for your customers, then you're already losing them in the dust, right? So having that ability inside of the tools that you use, like for example, VirtualText, you can really capture the information in real time and pivot and optimize your business for your customer from the get-go.
And I think it applies to not just the tools that you're creating, because I know, we have a lot of brick and mortar customers and things as well, and that's gonna look different in every industry, right? Those who are not so software or tech focused, that's gonna look different and, require that creativity. But also in the tools that you choose to use those and leverage those, right? So when you're using your
Yeah,
tools,
and your
what
communication
feedback
tools.
well, absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking communication tools, but I'm also thinking about your CRM and about all of the other
Mhm.
tools that businesses are using these days to function, ensuring that there are natural opportunities for feedback loops built into the product is a massive gain for a small business so that you're getting that feedback from the tool, not just from your direct and outside sources, your outside efforts. And I guess I would say that I mean, again, we really like our stuff here, guys. But I would say that that is an element. Virtual text, sure, it gives you great communication, opportunity to communicate through text and web chat and messaging services, but it's also got a built-in layer of feedback for you so that you can see some of the benefits and gains and be able to modify your business. If your business is a brick and mortar, use your tech and your tech stack and your tools to be able to include your feedback loops in that. And that's an important element as well. We don't just provide a communication tool, we provide feedback for your business that's built in. I mean, that's pretty huge. If I do say so myself.
Absolutely.
So I want to end on just a positive note that can you give us a great example to sign off with of what's a great feedback loop? How's that shown up in a customer experience for us? Can you give us just kind of a real positive? At the end of the day, it's about unlocking actionable, strong listening opportunities, and what's your best example of that for us? I love, by the way, the other examples that you've shared because it kind of just puts it in perspective. um, but any good
Yeah,
ones to sign off with?
there's one great one for our team. Um, like you said, we have lots, and most business will too, have lots of different tools that they use for communications for internal teams versus what you use for your customer. And that was one of the friction points that we recognized that our team, while handling customer conversations, there might be some internal discussions that needed to happen, but it was happening outside of virtual tags. So we recognize that, okay, this is creating a friction point. It's taking the team away from the product and they have to communicate elsewhere to address a customer concern. And then that information is completely lost elsewhere, right? So we built in back channel, which is a feature that gives the team the ability to collaborate on the conversation or the issue that the customers is experiencing in virtual text, but only visible to our team, and it stays with the conversations. So essentially, eliminating that conflict for our team to have to jump somewhere else to discuss with the team what's going on, and then no details or notes of what's going on with that customer or how we went through this and that process to fix it. Now, this conversation occurring inside of back channel that's right next to the conversation with the customer. So in the future, if we have other instances where that's occurring, we have a trend, we have the details right there and be able to address it within virtual tech itself without having to take the conversation elsewhere.
That is a fantastic point. Back channel is actually it's wonderful because how many times prior to this do you have a sidebar conversation? I feel like it's always like, oh, we had a sidebar conversation with just one of us and we came up with this solution. And that's not only is that kind of gone where you're like, well, what did we say? But it's also the rest of the team, the other people on the project, they didn't have that conversation also. So it's not now we've got a project that's moving at a different pace. So just we are very real here at Virtual PBX, and we navigate that in our other teams, and it's a fantastic solution to make sure that we're all on the same page. That's the thing that I think we repeat most. Just gotta keep everybody on the same page. Virtual Text does a great job of that, and Backchannel is definitely one of those really cool newer features that makes that happen and ensures that all that water cooler talk stays with the conversation with the customer. We're all appreciative. Well, Lynn, do you have anything else that you want to say, or is there anything that we didn't talk about that we need to bring up?
No, I think we've summarized feedback and overall, like I said, my office is always open. So while you're listening, if you want to share some insights or have any feedback on our product, come on in my office and we can have a conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'll try to make sure that that link is available with this video so that it's always attached. You can pester Lynn at any time. She is great
Perfect.
at having impromptu conversations with customers or just people that are very curious. So, well, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate your time as always. It's always great to have the conversation. I learn a lot with these, and I appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. Until next time. I'll see you.
Until next time.